You ready for pre-patch today, Nergul?
You mean tomorrow?
Oh
Am I
yeah.
ready for pre-patch tomorrow?
Well,
Because it's
whatever.
probably going to be down until like, I don't know, raid time tonight. Even if it does come up, I don't think it's going to be serviceable for a little while. But I mean, I'd like to be wrong. I want to be
Yeah,
wrong.
but
I want to be
what
wrong.
are you going to accomplish today? It's hey, go do some chore gas and some chores.
Unlock Korthia, mostly
What?
Torghast. Yeah.
It's so fun. I love it how Moggom just goes right into the questions.
Yeah.
Because it's like,
I mean, like the truth is, yeah, the patch comes out today, but like the real content doesn't come out for another week, so it doesn't really matter.
And that's just it. A lot of people are all like, "Yeah, it's time to get it and grind." I'm like, "Grind what?"
Yeah.
You have to wait a week. They've gated this whole thing where no one can do anything until the raids are allowed to go in and world first get done. All the time gates. I mean, I was watching Max last night. He was going over all the fights, and you could tell he would start talking about a fight, and then he'd stop his sentence when he was going to say something he didn't want to say, and then skip to the next ability, and then like give a very vague answer, then move to the next one. It was really funny to watch him like trip his way through it and not give away stuff.
I was telling some of the guys the other day, Zyro from Limit was watching Dratnos' tier list for Raiders, and he turned his camera off because he didn't want people to see like his like you know about these different reactions to all this stuff, because they're worried about him tipping his hand about you know how they feel about certain classes and stuff in the raids. So I mean, you got to do what you got to do, right?
It was like so, after every fight he would say like comp, and he's like, anyone works every single fight. and then he would get to like, he got like 7 bosses in and started talking about the fights, and he's like, and then there's this phase, it's phase 2, and it's going to be a wiper for pugs, but if once you figure it out, you'll be good. So then we're gonna go to the next phase, and then you got to watch out for
talking about like Payne Smith and Fade Scribe and stuff like that. Yeah.
Well, then he's like, then you got to watch out for. Oh wait, I'll let you guys find out what you got to watch out for. Go ahead. And I'm like he literally, it was, and then afterwards he's like, I'm exhausted, and everyone and people, he's like, people are probably thinking, why are you exhausted? And he said, I spent the last 2 hours going over every single fight while making up what I'm saying and going over to fight while simultaneously not saying what I don't want to say that might tip my hand on things we know. And he's like, that's exhausting because I feel like I've been battling myself the whole time.
I believe it.
I was like, oof. So it was kind of funny to hear him though, because you could tell he was holding his tongue for a lot of things towards the end. Like he got to like the second, third phase. He got to the third phase of Sylvanas, and he's like, and then on the third phase, you're gonna, and he paused and he went, I'll let you guys see it whenever it's time. That was the end of the conversation. And he moved on, and he's like, that's it. He's like, you guys will see it when it's time. And then moved on. Like he didn't, like I expected him to kind of go into it. He didn't do like any details. Because clearly they know they have a plan. They have a plan ready, which is surprising. I didn't think that people had plans for that yet, because I didn't think they gave people.
No.
Well, I thought historically they didn't let you test like the last 2 fights or whatever on Mythic.
No, I mean they've seen just about everything there is to see outside of maybe some like really niche scenarios, like a special phase or something like that.
Well, don't they like hold like certain phases in Myth?
That's what I thought. Like I thought that they were
not as much anymore.
Okay.
The thing is, they let a lot of the mechanics come through, but like they'll tune it later on to either be harder or easier or something like that, because they're wanting to test like, is the boss doing what it's supposed to do? And honestly, that's kind of the nice thing about doing testing, is like you get an idea for like the feel of things, like the cadence of the fight and stuff like that. But you know, obviously it's either going to be harder or easier depending on how they decide to tune it afterwards.
Okay, go ahead, Peter, do your throat clearing.
Well, I'm gonna add all of that conversation in.
Oh, okay.
Because that was a really good conversation, and it was like probably like the first like couple of first question and a half I was gonna ask anyway.
Well, but you can redo it. Now, it don't matter. We'll say it again.
No, it's okay. Okay. So, hello everyone. Hello everybody, and welcome.
And we'll see you next week.
And welcome to guys talking about Warcraft stuff. And this week what we're gonna be talking about, and what most people are talking about right now, is the patch. You know it. We know it. It's 9.1, and it is quote unquote live. Or it is in process of being live because we have downtime right now for like the next 9 hours or 10 hours, whatever it may actually be. Which I still don't understand how it takes that long, coming from my background. But it is what it is. But we wanted to sit down and take a couple of minutes. We have Nergul here, who has been on the podcast before. He is our guild leader, raid leader. He kind of
Mastermind.
the mastermind behind War Dance. And he's done a handful of the PTR stuff before, so I know myself and Moggom, we haven't really gotten onto the PTR that much, so I figured who better to ask some questions to and bounce some ideas and thoughts off of from this amazing patch that is launching today, which we're gonna have access to.
Finally.
Yeah, finally. God damn.
They heard us last week. That's all.
Yeah,
Longest first
ago,
patch ever by a long margin.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And scarefully, I called it. So and I'll keep saying that. And hopefully everything works out. But first of all, I'd like to say, Nergul, welcome. How are you doing, my friend? How was your weekend? What's going on with yourself?
I mean, it's good. I'm hyped, man. I'm ready to go. Just to get into new content, get into new rating, get into new Mythic Plus. Pretty much just all the new cool stuff. I'm ready to go. Haven't been doing much other than just getting ready, really.
Yeah. You Valor farming, or are you just Mythic Plusing, or are you just like vegging out, relaxing, trying to keep the mind clear, ready to go?
I've been mostly vegging, mostly prepping stuff, like just getting ready for like raid stuff, like doing a little like mind strategy, getting ready for things. Getting ready for our study sesh this week. But not really a lot of Valor farming. I've been popping in and doing a lot of like Mythic Pluses with people that are wanting to get into it, or maybe missing a couple of things here and there, just want some help, or just kind of shooting the shit and having fun. So it's been pretty relaxed the last 2 weeks, especially because we've kind of relaxed from the rating thing. And it's been kind of good. It's a little bit of a breath of fresh air and a little bit of a relief before it gets kind of serious again, so.
Yeah. Me personally, I will say I'm excited to get into that raid scene again, because like, well, we'll talk about it all later, but like I'm ready for something other than Castle Nathria. So I'm very, very, very excited. So thank you very much for taking the time to come and hang out. I appreciate it, and we love hearing the voice and making sure no one steps in the wrong thing.
Yeah, I won't scream at you during this one. So.
Oh, thanks. Watch your feet. Anyway, and once again, we have my good friend Moggom here, also hanging out. If you were here earlier, you heard him and saw him getting swarmed by his children. How are you doing, Moggom? How was your weekend? How did everything go?
What did I do this weekend?
Amnesia.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I tried calling you like 3 times this weekend, and you didn't even pick up the phone. You were so busy.
I don't know. We got things going on, so no, it's fine. It's just same old.
Trucking along.
Yeah, I mean, just like Nergul said, I've had a nice little break from a lot of the grind that is what we've been doing for the past 6 months. So I made the decision a few weeks ago to pull back, and it makes me feel rejuvenated, refreshed, and ready to go to
next week, man.
Next week, get back into it and start hitting it hard and getting ready for those raids again.
Yeah, I hear you. It's gonna be fun. I'm pumped. I'm fun. I'm like excited to see everybody get in the groups, everybody get in. And the one big change that we go from, because if you think about it, we're taking like almost like a step back to step forward, because we're going into heroic. We're not going to be going into mythic, so we'll be able to have our full raid team plus some. So we'll be able to walk into that with the full group, and we'll see how things end up going. So I'm excited to see it. So it's good. So now the big old question, 9-1. Now we all know that 9-1 has been looming, and we finally have it, and it's been 37 weeks, 38 weeks. What's the count?
Nergul knows.
I know Nergul knows.
It's much longer than that. I mean, we've been raiding for, I think, 29 weeks.
Yeah.
And we're at about 31, I think now. This would be 31.
Okay, so 31 weeks we've been waiting for this updated patch. What is one of the things I want to say is, what is the one thing that you guys are the most happy you will not have to be forced to see anymore?
Who do you
One
want to
thing?
know?
What's the thing that you're the most happy you're not gonna have to see anymore?
Flight pass.
You're still gonna need flight pass.
I don't think it's going to go
Very
away. 'Cause,
minorly.
yeah, it's
It's
going to be
just
much
getting
smaller.
out of Ouroboros. I've always hated,
I hate
a lot of the zones. Yes, they're all like, it's a zone, but they're very like hilly mountains, this, that, like people hate Revendreth that, like
Oh.
I grew up in Revendreth as a Venthyr to start. So for me, I got comfortable in the area to where now when I run it, if I have to go back there, I understand what I'm going through. It doesn't bother me, but people that weren't spending time in there, I hear constantly that they hate it. I'm excited at the fact that you're going to be able to just kind of like land in and go and not have to putz around in that and deal with all those different heights. Just the convenience factor. Because I'll be honest, that's one of the major reasons why I don't like doing world quests is you land, you flight path, you run somewhere up and into something, and you got to come back down to your flight path to get back around. It's just so inefficient that I want to be able to just churn through this stuff, and flying allows it. And they're not making it be this massive timeline of complete all these crazy amount of things to get it. It's, hey, week 2, you're getting it.
Yeah, if you've heard me talk about Venthyr before, Revendreth before, I hate the freaking place. I'm like, it should not take me like freaking 10 minutes to get from one side to another. It just annoys the heck out of me. That's, all right, I agree. But anyway,
unpopular opinion time. Bastion is worse than Revendreth.
Oh yeah. Oh, Revendreth's my second favorite.
But I mean,
why?
I get the argument against Revendreth, but at least it has flight points in it. Bastion has 4 flight points, and then in the most inconvenient places you can think of.
Yeah, I hate Bastion.
Anyway, so the one big thing that I'm not gonna miss, I think, I did not like the replayability of this raid. It's a good raid story-wise. It's neat looking, but playing it over and over and over again has probably been one of the worst raids that I've enjoyed reclearing. So I don't know if that means anything, but I'm looking forward to a new raid that hopefully has a little bit more staying power when it comes to, playthroughs and continuous playthroughs, basically.
Do you think the loot had a factor with it?
No. I think the boss design had a lot to do with it, more so than years past. So, like, you look at like Nyalotha, like the kind of fights that were in there, I think, were very easily repeatable, except for things like Xanish, which once you figured it out, it's pretty easy. But obviously, still you could screw up a little bit, and the whole thing just went to crap.
Oh yeah, it falls apart.
But
I
do think that there's more opportunities for things to go to crap in Castle Nathria. And the other thing that I feel like it didn't do great was every time you would re-clear it, it didn't seem like it got easier. Like, you were still subject to the same kind of pitfalls and things like that. So I'm not saying like you should be able to like completely outgear a dungeon or anything like that, but it didn't feel like it evolved as a raid for us. So maybe it's biased, but that's just kind of that's the one thing I'm not looking forward, or I'm glad that we're moving past is I want to see something different, and maybe it's a little bit more raider centric, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think that most of the raids that we've encountered in the past, you could sit there and play over and over and over and over and over again. This one, it was the first time I literally said to everybody, I was like, I know we normally do, viewer raids on Fridays, and it's a lot of fun. I'm done. I can't do this anymore. It's like, I love my community. I love everybody that shows up. But I'm just like, I can't. I'm like, my brain is toast and fried, and I just don't want to deal with it anymore. So I'm kind of in the same boat as you are, Nergul, that the place is fantastic. The place is Story-wise, it was great. It was perfect for what they needed to do. But I think, in comparison to the stuff in the past, this is a dungeon I'll be happy that I'm not gonna be jumping to go back and get transmog from either, because there's really no transmog because there's no tier sets.
Yeah.
So if I ever go back, it'll be very, very rare.
Two quick things to say. This is better than most of the starting raids for any expansion we've dealt with. It's better than Uldir. It's better than Emerald Nightmare. So like I feel like if you're looking at it in the grand scheme of things, you got to be careful because it's not a bad raid. It's just the playability was kind of rough. But yeah, like I don't know. I'm just ready to kind of move on to try different things. I mean, like I think to you guys, I've said this, and I've said it to a lot of people in the raid. Like it's been surprising that this has not been a long tenured raid compared to some of the longer ones. So like Siege of Orgrimmar was like 14 months. Hellfire Citadel was a long time. But people were talking more about burnout after this raid than they were of those raids that lasted more than twice as long. So, you know, it's just time to move on. Really, that's all.
I'm happy. I'm happy for it. How do you guys feel about us having to go back into Torghast? Because if you guys have heard and everybody's kind of seen, you have to change a couple of things involving your characters. As Mythic Raiders, even though I play Mistweaver and everybody doesn't like me playing Mistweaver. Anyway, so with Torghast change, I should say, with the raid we get new pieces of gear, the helm, shoulder, chest piece. They are getting these sockets that are going to be required for you to increase your damage in the Maw, in Chains of Domination, and why am I blanking on the third place? In Torghast.
Raid, Torghast, and Maw. That's it.
Yeah, in those three places. So as most of us have, even myself, we've all crafted legendaries, some of them being in those 3 tier slots. So now we are almost forced to, well, there's going to be a total of 5. The other 2 are randomized depending upon if you have what type of gear you're wearing. If it's leather, mail, cloth, and plate. So it depends upon which ones you're wearing. But you have to end up recrafting legendaries, which is going to force us to be in Torghast once again. Now, how do you guys feel? I'm gonna start with Nergul first, and then we're going to Moggom. How do you feel about going back to Torghast to have to grind for legendaries to get your gear back to your legendary back to where it was before?
So I'm probably the worst person to ask about this first because I see this as a positive change. I know it's going to sound weird. I don't love the idea of recrafting legendaries, or at least having some sort of like refund system that makes it a little bit easier for you to kind of like transition something from a shoulder to a ring or a bracer or something like that. I wish there was something like that, but yeah, that's another story. We'll get onto that some other time. I do feel like I'm wasting a lot of cash because in a lot of cases I am going to have to like recraft some of these things in different slots. But in some ways it's a little bit of a boon, just because some people are changing their secondary stats. So this is a chance for them to do that. And then I don't know if you guys have been keeping up with the Wowhead stuff, but basically they're saying all new upgrades and all new crafted legendaries that fall into those slots will get a socket, just straight out getting a socket. Don't have to go to Venari to upgrade it or anything like that. It just has it now. So that's a little bit of a cool thing. But from the Torghast perspective, I've been doing this stuff pretty much nonstop on most of my characters since they hit 60. Now I feel like Torghast at least offers a little bit more something than just your legendary materials. You know, from before it was the only reason you slog it out is because you want a legendary or another legendary or what you have a different spec legendary, whatever. Now there's cosmetics that are tied to it. All of the things that we associate with the Maw, like getting sockets or upgrading your conduits, all that stuff now can also come from Torghast. So it's not like you're running it for no reason anymore. like some of the changes I think are kind of cool, like the boons and the blessing system. At least will create it to be a little bit more roguelike. And a lot of the iterations that they've gone through on the PTR, everybody was worried it was going to turn into like outright speed runs, like just trying to get through it as ridiculously fast as you possibly can. And I don't like the current iteration of it that we're going to see today is not quite like that. It's still, you want to push a little bit, but it's not like, breakneck speed, eyeballs bleeding as you're doing, that kind of stuff. So I think, there's a play style that allows people to go kind of fast, but there's also a play style for the completionist. There's, I think it's pretty reasonable. So, from a Torghast perspective, I do think it's taken a step up. I don't know if it's a soloable or like it's one of those like expansion selling game modes, kind of like Mythic Plus was, or some of this other stuff that's probably going to stick around long term. It's getting very Torghast plus Visions now, but we'll see. I don't know. I mean, maybe eventually it'll evolve into its own game mode that has nothing to do with like player progression, which is what I would like to see. So.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. The thing there was one part that you said that I have to state. When I read that they were adding the boons and then the enchant, is it considered enchantments, enlightenments, something like that?
Blessings,
something like
or whatever they call them. Yeah.
My brain instantly went to Hades.
Yep.
If you've ever played the roguelike Hades, I instantly thought of that, and I was like, they saw this, and I'm like, they must have thought that this was a great idea, or very much like Mutations they did for StarCraft, and I was like, this is going to be a great thing for them to have because it's going to give that revitalized feel for Torghast. Now, me personally, I've been like you. I've been running Torghast at least once or twice, 1 or 2 characters a week in Torghast because I wanted to make sure that I was getting my stuff done and getting Soul Ash for the characters I need. I'm not super excited by the fact that I have to regrind certain like legendary pieces. I am lucky as hell that my legendary for my monk is not one of them. So I already have that in set. Secondary stats are all good, and all that fun stuff is great. Once we get to the point where I can upgrade with the oh my god, Soul Cinders, we're gonna be able to then allowing me to get that socket instantly because that's what happens, and we're good to go. Now, that's the other thing which I thought was interesting. They're gonna have all your tier pieces if you made them prior, like the tier 4s and all. You're not like I have a whole bunch right now on the auction house. Like I think probably like almost 30 pieces of gear of rune crafting pieces on the auction house because I crafted them before and I was slowly selling them out. Now, after this is all done, tomorrow when we finally get to log in after the 9-hour patch or whatever, I'm hoping people still buy that even though there's no socket, with the thought that once I go through and get my Soul Cinders and I upgrade it, that they're gonna get the socket. Because from my understanding, I didn't realize that they were gonna be starting to come with sockets, because with the patch notes it never said it directly, but
what changed? I mean,
yeah,
the socket change I think was a change that happened last night, actually on PTR. So
yeah, so that was one of those things that they never said, and I was like, I'm like, all right, whatever, not a big deal. I'll just try to get ahead of the curve. Spent 300 grand trying to upgrade the specific pieces because I know for leather wearers this one piece of gear is going to be necessary and the price is going to go up. So I was like, maybe I'll make some money, yay! So I ended up doing that. But I'm happy to see that Torghast is going to have this revitalized feel and this necessary need again, other than just going through it and then just bleh. So I'm happy that that's happening. Moggom, how do you feel about it? Because I know how you feel about Torghast in general.
Well, I think that your opinion of the regrind, while it's an annoyance, it's really not that big of a deal. You're still getting Soul Ash when you clear the 9, 10, 11, and 12. People have known about it for a few weeks. They probably have had some Soul Ash in their inventory somewhere or in their stuff somewhere. And now you could transfer it from character to character. The 5,000 isn't really that big of a deal. And aren't they increasing how much you get by like 50% or something?
Yeah, they're supposed to increase the amount you get at 50%.
So
and
like,
there's going to be a cost.
yeah, so
if you give it
well,
for, let's say,
yeah,
if you go
1,500 for 1,300. That's you're still getting 1,300.
Are you talking about if you transfer from one
Yeah.
tune to another?
Yeah,
Oh, I never actually saw the.
it's 1,500 for 1,300. So
It's not bad.
it's not bad. And
All right, so hold on. The reason that's not as good as it sounds is you realize you have to go into Torghast to do that, right?
that's fine.
Okay.
I mean, I don't think a lot of people are going to need to do it. It's not a long-term issue.
To be fair, like on all of the classes that only use one legendary, you're right. It's probably not going to have a really big impact on those people. But for the ones that do use multiples, or especially the ones that do it across multiple specs, I think that's where it's going to be a little bit more like heartburnish. You know, like
I suppose.
Like Warrior, I mean, it's the same one if you're playing Arms or Fury, right? So I mean, it's not really that big.
Not anymore.
Oh no, well, I guess not anymore. But, yeah.
They're shifting us all around. We have like, if like, if your Ventir, it's 1 for single target, then the ring, the Signet's good for cleave. But then if you go single target for Night Vade, there's Nature's
See what I mean?
Fury is
Now it
supposed to
starts
be.
getting more interesting.
Yeah, but I don't care. Like I
Yeah.
look at it like I can only make them so fast to 5 and 6 anyways. Like you can only craft rank 5 week 2 and then rank 6 week 5, but I can't even get the new ones till week 3 when you're 48 renown. So you're time gated anyways to where you have the time to get your soul ash. Additionally, people have known about this for at least a few weeks where they've had time to generate their soul ash up. So short term, yeah, it might be a little bit of a headache, a little bit of an annoyance, but I don't foresee this being that massive of a big deal. Like I look at it like
when
if I have to
we
redo it,
talk about
whatever,
this,
whatever.
when we
it
talk
is
about
what it is.
this, the soul ash cost is not the biggest thing. It's usually the cash cost for a lot of people. It's because
I suppose
for some of these items like mail, unfortunately, the cost is ridiculous compared to some of the other armor types. So
sure,
that's probably the bigger heartache for
'cause,
most
like,
of the
plate
people
for
that are
me,
gripe
it's-
about it. Yeah.
See, I have a question. The 20% soul ash is if you're re-clearing Torghast, correct?
Mhm.
What about when you're transferring between character to character? Did they tell you how much the decrease is yet?
No, they said if you spend 1,500, you get 1,300 on the other side.
Oh, so that also is for character to character.
That is no, that is the character to character. The character to character is you give 1,500 and another character gets 1,300.
What happens if you re-clear? Do you get soul ash again? I thought you did.
I mean, you can keep like the way it works, the sending from one to another, you go to the Torghast vendor at like right at the 3rd or whatever floor, and you buy a thing for 1,500 soul ash that is now BOA. You can send it to any other alt. They open it, they get 1,300. That's all it is.
Yeah, that's all.
It's the same thing as the old War Resources thing.
Yeah, it's not a clearing.
No, that's fine. I understand that. Can't you do so? Let's say, all right, it's Tuesday. I go clear Torghast.
Mhm.
I get my 1,500 soul ash. Can I re-clear it again for another 1,500 soul ash?
No.
So you're only
first off, do you get 1,500 soul ash for clearing?
Well, they're increasing it by 50%, aren't they?
Yeah, I thought they were increasing it.
So if you're getting 1,140, it would be like
Yeah.
1,600.
Yeah.
Yeah.
1,700 a week per character.
Yeah.
So every week one guy could transfer one per.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's what I was saying. If it's possible to go back.
No, well then they're not gonna let you chain run Torghast.
I thought
you can. I think the point is
cost.
you will be able to continuously train on it, but it like stair steps down the amount you get each time you do it. So it may be like when we're looking at the numbers of it, it may be more equitable to go on your alt, do the 1,500, and then somehow send that to over to whatever character you care about right then.
Croesus is saying you get 20% soul ash for re-clearing.
Well, that's garbage.
So that's you're saying you only get 500 if you re-clear?
No, that's not 20%, by the way.
No.
It's like 300.
300
or 200. That's really low.
So it's about 150 soul ash if I re-clear that. Fuck that.
Once again, this is a short-term thing. Like, there's no purpose.
I mean, you're gonna get soul ash as you're doing your Torghast anyway. You're gonna get soul ash anyway. So, like, if you're doing it for your soul senders, which you should be doing, you should be doing Torghast for your soul senders. You're gonna get free soul ash in the process. So, again, it's like Moggom said, it sucks today. it won't be a big issue in 2 months. I mean, honestly, nobody will care.
2 weeks,
at that
I don't
point.
think it'll be a big deal.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm talking about like every character. Nobody will care in 2 months. So,
No, yeah, I don't like. To me, I think it was poor planning on their part. Obviously, I think they did a very poor job of realizing what they're doing here. And I 100% agree with Nergul. They should do some sort of I don't know, some way to
refund system
refund.
or- yeah, I don't
and
know.
Yeah, they
even
should
just
have a refund
fine,
system.
give everybody the ability to refund one time. Who cares? Like, let everyone do it. One time you can buy it per character and refund an item and switch it over, or even, I don't know, however they want to do it. They could have done something to make it to where there's no feeling of, oh, I have to now redo more because of your guys'
I
mistake.
should be able to take like my helm, because I have my tier morning help. I should be able to give it back to the rune carver, be
Mhm.
like, destroy this, and then get half of my soul. I would take
Well,
half.
even half would be fine.
I
Yeah,
would
that'd be
take
great.
half. I would be happy.
It's just one of those things where I think it needs, I mean, I guess they could leave it in forever, but I think it should be just once. Because you don't want, I mean, I guess it would be nice to be able to switch your secondary stats if it changes throughout the expansion, to just be like, I'll give it to you, give it back to me with half of it, and I'll change up my secondary stats if I want to, but
Yeah.
cause like most people, if they have multiple specs, I can speak to warrior, if you're a warrior and you're fury, you have 2 secondary stats. If you're arms, it's 2 different stats. Having the ability to like, I'll return this, take half of it, and then transition it over to my other spec, cause that's what I'm gonna be now. It makes it feel less of a.
Just make a second legendary for your arms.
Oh,
spec.
I know.
Moggom,
I'm just
come on.
saying. I'm just saying. Some people who may want to do that. No,
It's
I
good
get
for
it.
the economy,
That's
know.
true.
So
That's true. That's yeah. I mean, I don't care. I'm trust me.
Fix the
There's
economy.
there's no arms coming in my direction anytime
No,
soon. So
no.
that will never happen. The only discussion I had was, is it worth it to go vent there for Sinful Surge? And
If you
I don't
want,
think it
if
is.
you want Moggom to rant for a half hour, you can just ask him to talk about arms warriors.
No, I won't rant. I'll say no. And move on. Move on.
So now, another interesting change that's been happening for 9.1 is the renown. So you guys have seen we're getting another 40 renown on top
40,
of what we
yep.
on top of what we have. I'm assuming we're going to be able to get another 3 a week.
It is.
So that means once we get to 6-ish, we should be able to get flying, because we're getting it at week 2.
No,
correct?
it's 44.
44. I'm sorry.
So it's literally the very first one on week 2. You get it,
Yeah. So that's a fantastic thing.
and then 48 is your new legendary.
new Lego that's Covenant specific.
Yes. So how do you guys feel about having to regrind the renown and it being gated?
I mean, it's what I would expect to see. I
Yeah.
wouldn't expect them to let you just get 40.
Yeah.
Because once again, they have to have some kind of a slowdown effect for the upper echelon guilds. You
Mhm.
can't allow them to just run. I mean, I guess you could, but they want to try to keep it as even playing field as they can. And by time gating it like that, you can't. Like
Mhm.
everyone will be on the same level. Everyone will be on the same page, and it's legitimately even playing field that way.
Mhm.
I mean,
Yeah.
and look
I mean,
at it. They timed it. It's week 3 is
Yeah.
the legendary, and week 3 is mythic rating. Like they're saying, okay, here you can have it when you go into the raid.
Yeah. It makes I mean, in my personal opinion, it makes sense.
I mean, there's not a lot of personal power tied into renown. I mean,
No.
obviously there's the soul binds, which is going to be big.
Mhm.
There's the stam increases, which is kind of nice, but
Mhm.
outside of like the legendary, like you said, getting it week 3, there's really not much more to it. A lot of it's just cosmetic stuff. It's a lot of storytelling, and like as weird as it is to kind of like grind that out over, I can't remember how many weeks that ends up being, but grinding it out over that period of time isn't really a big deal. Like it's been a pretty good
13 weeks.
story device. How it kind of like slowly kind of like lets you go through it. I mean, it's just a retooling of the same thing that we had, say, like at Broken Shore, where like you could only go to certain parts of the story by week 4, and then week 5, and more and more got opened. So
Sure.
I don't really have a problem with it as a storytelling device, and kind of even as a metering system, like you said, to like power level or whatever. But it hasn't really been a big effect. Like the first 40 levels, while they're like frustrating when you have to regrind it over and over and over again across characters and across covenants, and
or redoing covenants.
Right, exactly. So like that kind of stuff is kind of frustrating, but I mean, for the most part, like if you're just playing maybe a couple of characters on a couple different covenants, it's not that big a deal.
How do you? I personally feel that using the renown as storytelling devices is really a smart way of doing it.
Mhm.
Now, each of the covenants have their own stories somewhat. I've finally been able to complete all 4 of them, but they're all very interwoven in certain ways. For
You mean
instance,
Necrolord has everybody else's covenant and none of their own? Is that what you mean?
yeah. Well, the
Okay.
first, the beginning of it is theirs, but other than that, they
Compared to everybody else, they got screwed. Really?
Yeah, they got really, because like I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh, this is awesome, and I'm going through it and I'm like, all right, I'm doing battle, and then the next thing I know, I got like, what's his name, Drax or whatever his name is, the general, just flies down. And I'm like, wait a minute, didn't we use you before and fight this other guy? And then 2 seconds later, we're fighting the other guy. I'm like, I already did this crap. I'm like, what the hell?
Wait, this is the Venthyr thing.
this
and
is
you're
the
like,
Venthyr
wait, this
thing,
is the Kyrian thing.
Yeah,
Wait,
I was
this is
just
the
like,
Arden
what?
Wheel thing.
I was like, what is this?
It's like they
Yeah, that's
got
what it
to
was.
it and just ran out of ideas.
Yeah,
They're like Necro was the last one anyways.
yeah. Whatever. Just give him whatever.
We're out of time. We've already delayed the expansion. Just give it to
Yeah,
them.
pretty much. So I was a little sad about that, but I like how when you look at all of them individually, 3 out of 4 ain't bad for having some pretty decent stories. But I will definitely wait for Necrolord to be last, since it will give you spoilers for the other 3 for this time around. I'm very, very happy about that. Now, one thing that the 3 of us play often and lots is Mythic
Stream
Pluses.
Raiders? Oh.
Yes, and Stream Raiders. No, is Mythic Pluses. We have 7 days left of Prideful. How do you guys feel about Prideful leaving, and how do you feel about the next affix coming in and taking its place? Moggom, how do you feel?
No, Nergul wants to go. He's already waving.
Oh,
I can feel it. He wants to go.
I'll keep this real short and sweet. I'll keep it real short and
I know
sweet.
his thoughts. That's why I said it that way. Go ahead.
Prideful, goodbye. Interesting innovation as far as like a different idea for a Mythic Plus affix, but my biggest gripe, like wide over, is this affix does not scale with key level. And it makes it really hard to justify killing a Prideful in some of the higher keys. For the amount of time that you waste in the risks that you take fighting a Prideful on a thick fortified week with some of the other affixes like Grievous and stuff like that, can be really painful and not really worth the boon that you get from it. So it doesn't really give a whole lot of excitement in that regard. So I'm more interested to see how the tormented thing plays out long term. I think there's a lot more strategy involved. There have been a lot of times I hated the Prideful debuff because like you tripped into a mob and it screwed up your count for a boss or something like that and made it almost like harder in some ways. And like we jokingly talked about it early in the season that like doing a 10 was easier than doing a 9, which doesn't make any sense at all. So yeah, I mean, some of the lower keys were actually harder because you didn't have the buff from Prideful, and that's how impactful that buff was when you had it at the right time. But then when you didn't have it at the right time, it like you felt like you weren't even in the same dungeon. So I like the idea that the tormented affix can scale with your key level. I think it's going to open up a lot more strategy, a lot more routing, opportunities kind of later in the tier for us to do things like just completely ignore certain lieutenants and drag them into the boss or whatever you want to call it, have their abilities come through the boss. So from a creative standpoint, this is kind of like a combination of like say Awakened plus Prideful, but in a much more free and creative way, in my opinion. So
yeah, I would agree because I enjoyed the BFA Awakened. I really enjoyed. But you're like, dude, I want to kill this one. Just skip that one. Let's just deal with it on the last boss.
We don't need to deal with a spider now. We
can
bring him down on the
like that was kind of a cool thing, and giving that ability to be able to say, okay, let's do what we want. I completely agree because it does feel like you're almost locked into your pull rotation with prideful. Like, you have to do this and then this, or you're legitimately wasting the entire buff. And as you said, when you get to the high dungeons, first off, you watch the MDIs and those kind of players, and they do 1 out of 4, and the other 3 they legitimately pull to skip. And then you watch the super high keys, and they have to use like shamans became integral in that, because the combination of a shaman with a druid tank being able to use the earth elemental and then the druid dropping out of bear form to be able to heal while the earth elemental is tanking it. It's like we're not even playing the game anymore. You're just literally letting your pet hold it while you try to survive. And that doesn't feel like that's necessarily a skill based thing. It's, you have to have a druid, you have to have a shaman, or you're going to just take it in the face. And so it loses the feel of, oh, I'm actually playing this game for talent level. It's just more of a, you're basically forcing classes into it, and that once again ruins the mindset of what you want to see in a Mythic Plus, where hey, here's the meta. If you're not the meta, go sit down. You're not getting in here. And so I completely agree. I think that in theory it was cool, and I think that it's a nice little check at times to be like, oh, can you stay in here? Can you learn the pulls? Do you know where you're pulling it at? It can throw you off if you pull the wrong stuff at the wrong time. So it forced your mindset to kind of be in line with what you need to do, and not just pull everything in every direction. And I didn't like the fact that some dungeons were random. Like, look at Miss. You would get prideful just different times based upon which direction you went. And so there's no managing that. It's just, I hope we go in the right direction and it ends up coming at the right time. Unless you had a hunter or a druid that could shoot over the wall on the first one and pull it in, you really didn't have a whole lot of control. So that was kind of an annoyance that I'm fine with. I mean, I enjoyed it for what it was, but once again, like you said, 8s and 9s felt harder. Let's move on. Let's try something new. I'm hopeful that this doesn't turn out to be garbage, because it looks kind of cool, and once again it does remind me of the Awakened, and I like that. I enjoyed that FX. I thought that was a really fun one, because you had to kind of deal with it, but you could skip it. And like you said, you can game plan this. I mean, I saw a few of them trying it out in this, and it made that last fight kind of interesting when they were moving at that slow pace, walking around. And it's going to be the same thing. You're going to have to figure out where they're at, and then your pathing is going to be get to them as fast as you can and kill the ones you're going to kill. And I don't know. I mean, to me, that feels better, because it's not, we can't pull this one or we're going to screw up our percentage, and then we're thrown off completely for the rest of the dungeon.
I feel like the way that they have it now with the prideful, you're forced to specific paths in front of you, plain and simple. I don't know how much the paths are going to change between now and the next one, because still you're hitting that last boss at 100% though.
Yeah, but the variation of that is that you're not for DOS, how you have to go down the entire hallway and then come back and you backtrack. That's probably going to be a thing in the past.
But but aren't all the bosses for that all surrounded by the center pillar? Aren't all 4 of them right there in the center?
What do you mean?
Aren't all the oh my god, was it tortured?
Tormented.
The lieutenants, you mean? The tormented lieutenants?
Aren't they all sitting in the center? All over in the center part of DOS.
They're frontish. They're frontish.
Yeah. So what's going to stop people from just going, all right, we're going to clear the whole freaking circle now?
Well, they might
get all of them and then go down the hallways.
I mean, look at Temple. They're in each one of the alleys, but they're short in. So I'm guessing you're going to see people drop in. There's one right there, and then they're going to just go to the 3 real fast and come back and then go in a circle around.
I hope it makes it freaking easier, because I hate that fucking place. I hate that place so much.
Are you cutting out that F word you just used?
Oh my god, I will if I have to. I can't. Yeah, there's that place. Just anyway.
I'm just saying, it frees it up. You don't have to go to them first, but I think people are going to, beeline to them once they know where they're at and they have it all under control. But once again, if you accidentally pull an extra mob, you're not going to feel like the entire dungeon now is screwed up and the percentages are off. It's just get to the 100 and get to the last boss and utilize. So I like that. I mean, it got old when you were doing the same path every time with no variance. And if you made a mistake on the percentages, you knew it, and it was going to feel bad the rest of the run because you were going to be off.
Yes.
And, I hate.
I also think it severely destroyed anybody's will to start tanking that didn't already do it.
Yeah,
Mhm.
no, I agree.
Because you have to know all that stuff from the beginning, and
Yeah.
it's hard. Like it's hard
you-
for
you
somebody to be
couldn't-
like,
you
I'm going to
couldn't
ease my
just-
way into tanking.
No,
Oh
you
no,
couldn't
you
just jump
piece of
into it.
crap! You screwed up the prideful timings and all this
Yeah.
other stuff. And
Well, I mean, look at Necrotic Wave. You have that entire platform up there that's like one dies, the next one comes out, the next one comes out, and it's a huge percentage of the dungeon. And if you don't pull downstairs properly, you're gonna get prideful in the middle of a pack coming at you. And I couldn't tell you how many times you're in a pug and the tank messes something up somewhere, or someone else pulled like one of those guys as you're skating around, and then your percentages are off, and now you're getting it mid pull, and it's like that's the punishment for one error on a pull. Like you're now going to have everything fall apart like that. That felt like the pain for the error was not equivalent, and it'll be nice to have that go away and be able to just kind of like run your dungeons again.
The one thing I'm happy Prideful's going to be gone from the healer standpoint, because trying to heal through that is literally it's a bait. I mean, I literally just sit there and I would spam. Like if I was on my priest, I'd just be spamming prayer of mending, what's it called, prayer of mending, and cross my fingers in hope. And like I would be doing, healing surges, praying to keep people up for all my shamans. So I'm happy that it's gonna be gone. The thing that scares me the most,
No more mana
But-
regen.
well,
You don't get that
that's one of
anymore.
them. That's
That was
one
your
of them.
saving grace when you could kind of watch your mana trickle down and get to where you get the prideful, survive it, and then you have a minute of like freedom.
Right. So you got your mana back, and also when we are on
Tyrannical.
the
Fortified
boss-
trash, tyrannical.
Tyrannical.
Bosses.
Tyrannical.
The bosses. It's good. They're going to be a lot more interesting not having that like double haste, if you will.
Yeah, well, they
So
they,
that, but
know,
they did nerf.
yeah, they nerfed them.
They nerfed all the damage
But
of
well, the
everyone in the
major
dungeon.
yeah, the major ones that were hiccups, like the first boss in Mist, that was like the big, to me, that was the most noticeable boss that
Oh yeah.
if you didn't have the buffs or you didn't have the single target, you're gonna spend 10 minutes on that fight. Get ready. It's gonna be a long fight and you're gonna be sitting there.
Hakar
Bringing that
too.
thing's hit points
Hakar was pretty
down.
bad too.
See, I never had I never felt like Hakara was like that first boss. I mean, Hakar.
Because you always had a prideful for it.
Probably.
Well, what Hakar always, even when we wiped, Hakar felt okay, but I would get on that first boss and miss, and it would take 3 rounds where you're just,
Yeah.
if you don't have that single target, you really felt it. And the fact that they've brought their hit points down makes it more realistic. But then I'm interested to see what the buffs feel like from the new effects. I want to see how those choices feel, because they may give you the equivalent of having prideful, where you're like, okay, I feel strong again.
Well,
There-
it may not be prideful as big in that
Yeah.
like small window, but I think having it over the course of the entire
Exactly.
dungeon is going to make up for it, even
Exactly.
probably more so.
I
in
think
my
so, too.
opinion.
Mhm.
Because
But, yeah.
because you'll never waste it. Like
Right.
like how
Right.
you waste some
Right.
pridefuls. You'll never waste this buff
Mhm.
because you have it the rest of the dungeon.
There was someone that made a comment about the domination sockets. There's 2 things. The domination sockets, the sockets themselves are going to be useful, and the gems inside those sockets will be useful. The keywords that those sockets will be creating are not used unless they're in, like we said before, Torghast Maw and Sanctum of
Hold on.
Domination.
So that's not exactly true.
So they
The
changed that again?
sockets that hold no. This is just a wording issue. So the sockets themselves, the effects that they give off themselves will be usable in all forms of content. The set bonuses will
Correct,
do
yeah.
nothing in PvP, in Mythic Plus, in whatever, all that stuff. So set bonuses are only usable in those things that you talked about, the Maw, Torghast, and the raid itself. But the actual sockets themselves will still function in all facets of the game. It's
Correct.
essentially
Yeah, because there's you need 3 of a specific one to get the bonus.
right.
And depending upon what you are, you'll pick it. And then
I mean, this is really no different. I don't know if you remember the era where we had set bonuses and then they just turned them off in PvP.
Yep.
This is kind of the same concept. It's just a little bit different shape and form.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
So all in all, I guess we're all happy that Prideful's kind of dissipating, and we're kind of excited to see the next stuff that's coming around, which is
Sure.
good. Yay! Now, big subject matter, the raid. How excited are you guys for the raid? I'm pumped. I'm excited. We briefly were talking about it before. How are you guys expecting to see this world race for World First going to go in a couple of weeks?
What do you mean?
Do you think that it's going to be that people that the higher echelon guilds are going to be ready for it and they're just going to plow through it, or is it going to be similar to the way that the old one was?
No,
So
they
that's
have
gonna take a little bit of time.
so much. Max even said it yesterday. He said a lot of people had expectations that it would kind of like plateau their ability to. He's like, and it hasn't. He said, all you do is you just continue to learn more and more and more. You know, he mentioned that they've even gone to the point where they have mathematicians coming in and doing the math of how much hit points they have, how much damage they think everybody can do, and how much time it'll take and what they can run. Like it's pure numbers now. It's not even, oh, can we do this? No, it's here's how long you're going to play. Here's how long it's going to take. Here's your numbers. Do we have the numbers? Okay, we don't. What do we need to shift to make it? What's our backup person that comes in and does it? How many healers do we need? How much damage is going to go out? So, they've gotten it basically to like the baseline of this is what we need. Who can hit it? And can we hit it? And if we, and I think that they're making it's a business and they're doing everything. I mean, he even mentioned it. They've had so many meetings to run the numbers, to discuss what they're going to be doing, how they're going to be doing it. He's like, we've talked it to exhaustion. So I don't think that they're going to have the learning curve that they're always going to have. But I don't think that it's going to be like, unless they make the fight basically unkillable for an extended period of time. I mean, look at Castle Nathria. Their biggest hiccups were when there were errors and issues. Like generals had the first like 100, and I think it's 112 attempts or whatever. They were bug ridden. They couldn't kill it. Once they removed them and they actually had the bugs gone, it was like not a lot of pulls anymore. It was only Denny that took them a little bit of time, but even then they had issues. So, I think that they're just those top 4 or 5 guilds are so good. They're going to be able to do it as long as they have the numbers, and as long as they make it killable, they'll kill it, and they'll kill it relative. Like he was talking about how he thinks even the middle bosses will take 1 to 3 pulls. I was like, whoa. He's like, yeah. He's like, looking at it, it looks tough. He's like, 3 pulls, we'll have it, and we'll move on.
Oh wow. That's gonna be very impressive to see how quick it's gonna go through. Nergul, how do you feel? Do you feel something very similar, or?
Okay, so there's a couple questions in there, right? So, what do I think about the raid? I'm excited for new encounters. I'm excited for the lore aspects of this raid. I feel like, we're starting to get into the meat and potatoes of the story of Shadowlands here, right? So, like, as far as names that are in the raid, there's a lot of like big lore impact names like Nergul, Kel'Thuzad, Sylvanas. There's ties to Garrosh. A lot of like big moving parts, I think, are happening for story reasons, and also just looking at a lot of the encounters. There's some cool stuff in there. But kind of when we talk about the world first race, I think it will be competitive. But I do think, like Moggom said, and I've seen even Max and some of the other guys say, like, they're going to blast those first couple of bosses in Mythic. Like, honestly, it would not surprise me to see them 7 of 10, maybe 8 of 10 in the first couple of days, and then starting to like pare down for those last 2 fights, like Kel'Thuzad and Sylvanas. Maybe depending on how things like Fate Scribe is tuned, like they could throw some roadblocks in there, like maybe make like Guardians of the first one really tight DPS check, kind of like they did with Sludge Fist, because it's a very Sludge Fist kind of fight.
And that's what he said.
So it kind of depends on their tuning, but for the most part, I agree with what they're saying. They're going to blast through those first bosses, and I think that's by design. They seem to be moving away from the Ashvane guild killer or Mythic Gorfiend and say like Hellfire that just ruin guilds. They seem to be moving away from that kind of design philosophy where they put like the big, huge check right in the middle of the raid. Doesn't mean they won't ever do it again. It just means that it seems like they're trying to go for a more gradual increase difficulty for the raids. And I think that's probably good by design, you know? So, yeah.
Do you guys think that they're doing this more, what's the word I'm looking for? People-friendly type raids because they feel that it's a necessary thing for them to keep on the subscribership? Or do you think that they just found that this is the best way for the company to kind of operate? Like, all right, we're going to keep now, because you got to think about it. This is kind of like a little bit. Raid is one of the, I would say, one of the 3 different methods of how Warcraft is making the money: the raids, the Mythic Pluses, and the PvP. So, one of the biggest hype scenarios for them is this world first raid. Do you think that they're making these raids a little on the easier side to make sure that people are going to have more enjoyment with them and keep them kind of still, playing and staying on for a while to keep their subscriptions? Or do you think that they're kind of just like, it's all right, we'll be all right, we're just going to keep rolling through and doing whatever we want?
I mean, I don't know. There was a huge Twitter beef battle that happened a couple weeks ago between a lot of different like content creators that were talking about how WoW caters to the 1% or something like that. And I don't know if I buy a lot of that. There was a lot of back and forth. The details aren't really important. If you want to go look at it, you can. But I don't really think they're catering so much to the race to world first or even the 1% of the raiders. Like, for the most part, I think when it comes to design philosophy from the devs, they're trying to think about the greater player base. And, this is an RPG, right? The whole thing is looking for that next big thing for your character, for your story, whatever you want to call it. So having things be accessible at some level, but still challenging, keeps you in the game longer. And it keeps you, a subscriber or whatever you want to call it. So from a design perspective, that makes sense. But I don't think they're doing anything to cater to the race to world first, except for you do see things like get down tuned over time, where like, I'll say a certain mythic boss that's, like you said, almost bugged or even just ridiculously difficult that most guilds are never going to make it through. When they start seeing like kind of the pass fail rates for certain the percentage of the population, they may start to pare things down over time. Yeah. But I don't think that's necessarily them catering to the 1%. I think that's just that they came out with an idea, they threw the darts at the dartboard, and then, for the most part, like it worked the way they wanted it to, but maybe it was a little too stiff or penalizing in some cases. So they back it out and make it more accessible, whether it's because, X, Y, and Z class aren't good at that fight and they want to make it so, the X, Y, and Z class can do those fights. That's another thing. Like when we're talking about race world first, they're doing optimization, like you said, at a mathematical level. They're taking classes, they're taking players based on those things. Like it's really specific. But for the average, 20-man raid, that's probably not that hard. I mean, like it's not something that they're going that ridiculously crazy for. I mean, I don't even think, like, if I were to take a poll of all the guilds just on Zul'jin, I would say probably less than 30 of them do serious split runs, like, honestly.
That's a
so,
lot
I mean, like,
yeah.
But I mean, like, Zul'jin's a massive server, like, massive server. So
I would have thought it was lower than that, though.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm talking about like ones that are actually even in the race too. Like I think there's people that do serious split runs, but they just don't care about like progress. But like I'm talking about like just doing split runs at all. Like there's probably about 30 guilds that do it, maybe.
It's a lot.
But yeah, like.
Oh yeah, like you were saying, Zul'jin.
Yeah, so it's. I don't know. I don't think it's quite as bad as it sounds. Like I said, I really don't think they're specifically catering to the 1%, but I can understand why certain people see it that way.
Yeah, some people, they end up seeing it that way, and I don't think they are, but I think they tend to be more of the, hey, we need to get content out, let's get it out, and then they get it out. They try to figure out and see what's going on. I mean, TOP, that we used to have 4 bosses when we started TOP, not 3, and then they
Did you
were
see
like,
that one's coming back?
What is it coming? Is he coming back?
Yeah, the 4th guy's coming
Oh,
back.
it's coming back.
Yep.
So yeah, yay, TOP.
Just stun him. Just stun him. What's the hard? Just stun him. It's fine.
Yes, yeah. We'll just blind.
Leave
him.
your friends alone. Yeah, leave
Yes,
your friends alone. That's fine.
Yeah. So hence why I went shaman. Capacitors. So yeah. So definitely, I could definitely see why they're doing that. Why people think that, but I don't think they are. I think that right now, because of everything going on, and I think that most of the people kind of see what was happening, and people were starting to get bored because of like we're talking about Castle Nathria and burnout and things of that nature. That was starting to happen and cause some problems.
Well, I mean, I think that they do not cater, but they listen to every style of player. They
Mm.
have a certain level of difficulty for the top 0.1% or 1%, whatever you want to say it is. They have a certain level of difficulty. Once all those guilds have accomplished what they're going to do and kill it in the first 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks, whatever it may be, then the next level of guilds finally get there, and it may be a little bit too hard. And then, as Nergul said, then they start to nerf it down for the next tier of raiders. And then once they all get it, and then it's the next tier, then they do like I'm sure they have a certain metric that they're using, like he said, for pass fail. And so it's not so much they're catering to them, but initially 99.9% of the players aren't even there. So who cares how hard it is? You're not good enough to be there. Let's be honest. You're not skilled enough. You're not talented enough. You don't have the time, none of it. So it doesn't matter. And as the guilds rise into it and they find out it's too difficult, then they go, okay, well, now let's bring it down to the next level of what we want to do and make it a little bit easier. And they make it accessible for everyone as the realm goes.
I will say that I agree with that. I never thought of them doing it that way, but now that you're saying it, I'm thinking about it. Think about it. The last Sire, the crescendos. How many people got knocked off because of the crescendos because they couldn't see it? And Blizz was like, "We have to change the animation."
I mean, there's no way that they didn't know it. There's no way that they went, oh, we could do this for 3 months. Like they knew, they were waiting. And then they went, okay, enough guilds are failing. They can't get it. Let's make this a little bit easier.
I don't think that was a Sire problem specifically. I mean, they've taken a stance in the past that like they want to like thematically have like a color palette of spells that are tied to certain bosses or even certain instances. And a lot of times it's a purple on a gray, which is sometimes really hard to see, or like you said, a red on a red, which is hard to see. So like, I'm not saying it's unique to Sire. I'm saying like the consequences of that particular thing were very dire if you missed it and got hit by it. So like there is some like that's been a reoccurring thing I think in WoW for general. I mean, like we were talking the other day about like in the other side how purple it is in there, and that one mob that does the huge knockback that usually sends people flying off the platform. When there's 10 mobs hunkered on top of each other and it starts pointing in a direction, it gets really hard to see which direction it's pointing because the spell effects are matching the rest of the ambiance of the room. So like, you know, yeah, most of the time you don't get hit by it, but every once in a while you're like, well, yep, I got caught. I'm sorry, you know, so.
Yeah, no, I agree. But I think that enough people, they were aware of it for a long time, I feel like, and they just chose that was one of the standards that they wanted people.
Yeah, like thematically they chose that, you know, let's make it pretty or
they said deal with it. And then once they got past the guilds that could, and they went, okay, the guilds that are left can't, let's throw them a little bone. Let's make it a little bit easier for them. And then that was the shift they made. And I think that's what they do. They have a certain standard for the top guilds, and then they bring it down as guilds reach that point, and they see people hit like the wall of that fight, whatever it may be. And they're listening. I guarantee they're looking at what's killing people, and they're like, okay, that mechanic's killing a lot of people, and it's really causing them fits. So let's make it a little bit easier. And then boom, and then new guilds start killing it. And that's how they make their adjustments. And I think that's actually a very useful and good way to kind of appease everybody, because every guild is either going to hit the wall and have to wait, or they're going to rise to the whatever the ability is or whatever the function is and beat it. And one way or another, you'll eventually get there, but how badly do you want it? Can you figure it out? Can you deal with it? And if you can't, then get ready to sit there for a while.
All right. Final thoughts about the raid Moggom for yourself.
I'm just excited. I'm excited to see a new place. I'm excited to not be in the same raid, the same, same 7, 8, 9, 10 bosses. It'll be nice to get a new feel, a new vibe. And as Nergul said, hopefully it's a little less chore gasty feeling when you're grinding through these bosses week after week, and it's more of an excitement because, even when I was in BFA or any other one, I've never felt the way I felt with Castle Nathria when it was time to raid, where I was just like, I mean, even when it was re-clear, I was, you just knew that it probably wasn't going to be the most enjoyable time of your week.
Yeah.
And so you just, I'm excited to go back to something where I'm excited and I'm like, let's see the new fight. Let's learn these fights. Let's progress through these things. Let's, a new challenge other than just, can you dodge something that you've dodged 400 times and don't make a mistake or everyone dies. Don't jump. Take your space bar off your keyboard, because if you jump during the wrong time, you kill everybody. I did it like once and I like never did it again. I actually learned to, if you watch me, I stopped jumping on the fight even. I've trained myself to not jump. It was hard because I had to my thumb sits on it. I had to I literally put my thumb underneath the keyboard and had to play without my thumb because that's my movement. My movement is jumping. When people watch me, I'm just at all. I mean, even when I'm just standing still, I'm jumping. I don't know. It's just what I do. It's just a habit that I have. And, to not be able to do it ever was, it's funny because on my healer, I never jump. On my shaman, there's never a jump.
Well, you can't afford to and break all
I
your
don't
chest,
push it ever. I'm always just standing still. And so it's funny to see how my brain works, but yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see the new ones. I think it'll be a good time. I think that the new Mythic Plus, not new, but the Mythic Plus grind, I think hopefully this time it's actually going to be a grind and we can actually push to the 20s. I would like to do that, and do that. Because I mean, I was in 20s in BFA. There's no reason why I shouldn't be able to do it. I feel like warriors are actually decently strong. So I may not bring some of the group usefulness, but I do bring rally cry. I do have a lot of self healings and self survival. So that
Sonky, if you're here,
that brings a lot of usefulness that I think that, if you're using the correct abilities, you can survive for a long time as a Fury Warrior. And, I pump, so I like that. So we'll see. I'm just excited to see it. It's going to take a little bit of time to get back into it, get used to the domination stuff and everything else. But, I think it's less of a jump and shock as it was when it first came out. When it first came out, there was a lot of stuff that you had to kind of figure out. And I don't think that the change is as severe. So I think it's going to be a quick little, and plus if you were doing 15s, it's 12s, 11s, 12s. So you're already almost at that point back at the 15. So that's a couple weeks of figuring it out or just doing it. And then you're right back into it. And so that's going to feel good to not have to go to get blues. and then have to work your way through it. You're going to be back where you were relatively.
The gear grind is definitely going to be a lot better this time around.
And that feels better. That feels better. It feels like you're not as tired.
We have things like Valor from the get-go. That's a nice thing. There's not such an emphasis on the PvP weapons, which I think is good. Honestly, from an upkeep perspective, obviously you're gonna have to do 15s for your weekly chest as opposed to 14s. Not a change, not a big change at all, really. I mean, honestly, it's more in line with the way it's always been.
It should be.
It should be. Yeah. So it's also really weird that KSM was tied to 15s and then your max weekly was 14. Anyway, that whole thing didn't make sense to me. But from an upkeep perspective, I think honestly this patch is easier than the 9.0 patch. The Venari grind in the Maw and all that stuff, having to deal with Eye of the Jailer and worrying about dying and losing your Stygia and all that stuff. All of those power points that were tied to that are not necessarily tied to that anymore, which is really, really nice. So I mean, from a is this more alt friendly? Is this more raid log friendly, whatever you want to call it? It's definitely more friendly for the, I don't have 40 hours a week to devote to WoW or whatever. There are opportunities that you can grind a little bit and get some stuff done and get some little bit extra, but it's not quite the same as what it was in 9.0 in my opinion. So I think it's honestly it's a huge boon.
Being able to mount in the mall.
Yeah.
The people who didn't do Twisted Corridors or one of the other variations, like it was,
or hated druids,
it was just it felt like a kick in the groin that you're just getting punished. Like it was just a punishment for playing the game. Like you have to come here, you have to do this crap. Oh, by the way, you have to walk. Like,
yeah, we hate you, Marsh.
Like, why are you doing this?
Dude, other druids hate you, Marsh. That's the way it works.
Like, I just don't get why they would do something like that to everyone. I understand they don't want to give flying right off the bat. Fine. But you're going to force people to go to this big zone where it's very, it's not user friendly in the way you move. Things aggro everywhere. And if all of a sudden you get swarmed and you're dead, and then you, like you said, you lose your Stygian, you go back to your corpse. Like every single portion of it made it feel like you were getting punished, as compared to something that you had to just do to kind of better your character. And I'm glad that they're going away from that, because that people hated it, and you shouldn't get in you don't want people playing a game where they log in and they're like, they're just that their heads down and they're like, just let me get through this as fast as I can. Like that, that's not a feeling you want people to have, because that turns people off. So I'm glad that they're going away from that and making it more user friendly.
I agree. Nergul, you're good? Right? Any last things would you like to say?
I'm just hyped, man. I'm ready for our progress. I'm ready for Race Sword first. I'm ready for new content. I'm ready to be happy that any mistakes that Snaly makes, he can't blame on his class balance anymore.
True.
I'll
try to make it happen, but
Nergul, he has to get a raid spot first.
We'll see.
Oh my god.
But honestly, I think we've all kind of said this. This has been a long time coming. We're all ready for some change. So I'm just excited to get into it and start doing stuff. So it does kind of suck that like really the hard hitting stuff doesn't hit till next week, but it's better than nothing. So
sure. Yeah, it's a stepping stone in the right direction towards what we're looking for. So, and as much as I might complain that it's really next week or even the week after, when your first vault is the 13th, you get a week of, you get to see Korthia, you get to go into the mall, you get to feel all the new things, at least the dailies, weeklies and stuff, and you get used to it already. A weekend you'll be used to it, and then you're just going, and that way when you're going to do your mythic pluses and going into raiding, you've done it for a week, so you felt it already. So it's not as big of a, oh god, I got all these things to do, what do I got to do first, where am I at? Like, you've done it, so it's just get back into it. You've done it, go do it. Okay, you got your rating, and then week 2 you're basically 100% focused on your vault, because they are forcing your gear to, I think it's 223 for week 2 at the end of dungeon. Isn't that the cap?
I think so.
So week 2, it's like 6s plus, it's all 223. So it's not even like end of dungeon has a benefit. It's just get the vault ready for the 13th. And then you can start to actually prep and go and get that gear and stuff. So to me, I feel like week 2 is get your vault ready and then get your 10s in for your Valor. So that way you're ready to start upgrading the gear that you may get. Because I actually don't even know if they're having it say season 1, season 2, or how it works with the Valor upgrades.
You're talking about KSM and KSC and it's new, all new.
It's season 2, right? It's just like season 2, 1 of 12 or whatever.
So everyone's got to go and bang out their 10s.
So that's why I'm saying you could run like 10s, 1 of each, get your 10, which is level 2. I don't even know what item level. It's probably going to be like 239 gear, 240, 242 gear cap or something, maybe even 245. So it's going to be like in that category. Well, that's an upgrade. So get the 10s done, get your Valor started so you can start upgrading that way while you're also getting your vault and getting everything else from the raids. So like to me, that's where my brain goes. Is as much as I want to push my keys as high as I can, I think that comes later. I think it's just get your gear. It's get your Valor. Like I'm looking at 12s. I think 12 is a good place to kind of hover to
That's
start.
yep. That's my
That's what
that's
you're
my
doing now. So
that's my sweet
Yeah,
spot.
exactly. You know,
So,
I think 12,
so-
12 to 13, and then I'll probably try to get into a 15-week one. I mean, I don't know why I couldn't. It's just a matter of not week 1, but week 2, whatever.
Two,
But
yeah.
it's just a matter of getting there. So we'll see
Mhm.
how it goes. We'll see how it feels. It's gonna be a lot of grinding again, but that's fine. That's what I like to do. So let's go do it.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. As for me, I kind of feel the same way as you guys have. Ready for the new patch. Ready to see the new content. Ready to kind of get new grinds going. I mean, I've done my shaman, as I like to call it, the shaman experiment, because I wanted to see what the difference would be if someone was going to grab a geared to the T's Mistweaver monk or an undergeared shaman, and people would take the undergeared shaman before the Mistweaver monk. So it was which is very surprising to me.
just lust, man. That's all
I
it
know,
is.
I know. It's
And
just
they think
lust.
most of the time they think you're elemental. That's all it is.
Which was pretty funny. I've gotten kicked out of many groups because they've seen me with 2 swords, like weapons on my back, and then they're like, "You're enhanced." I'm like, "Yes." Next thing I know, boom, kicked
I
from.
mean,
group.
it's
I'm
the
like,
same problem with Feral, dude. Like
Yeah,
Feral,
I know.
no matter how good Feral is, as long as it's not as good as Balance, they're not gonna like it. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah. Well, like I said, it was that was just for last patch, so it was just an experiment to see, because I like to see what people are kind of ticking in their brains when they don't know who's on the other side of the box, and they don't give you any descriptions. So it was very, very interesting. So all in all, I am very, very happy that we kind of have Sanctum of Domination around the corner. I'm very excited to have new Mythic Pluses to run with. I'm excited to start working on lots of different things. So very, very happy about it. Okay, so as we come to a close, Nergul, would you like to tell people where they can find you? What's going on? Anything new and exciting for you?
you guys will hear me screaming at these 2 every Tuesday and Wednesday night. Not really screaming. I don't really scream that much, but
Just at me.
He just sends me angry messages.
just yeah, it's a lot of telling.
Stay!
A lot of,
That's
That's it. I mean,
that's what you hear all the time.
if there's a reason for it, you're gonna hear it. So, but yeah, you'll see me Tuesday and Wednesday screaming at these 2 to watch their feet and all that good stuff. Our guild, we're looking for a couple other raiders, maybe. So if you're in the 220 neighborhood and looking to find
For
a
a
raid
monk.
spot,
Monk here, right?
Shut up.
hit us up. And for the most part, like I said, just looking to get down to it. So I very rarely stream on Twitch. It's extremely uniquely rare, but it does happen occasionally. So yeah.
There you go. Moggom, what about yourself, good sir?
Same thing. I mean, I'll be with you. I'll be with Nergul. I'll be raiding, and then I do stream every so. I mean, I've pulled back the last few weeks just because I haven't been on. I took a break, kind of chilling. So, but I do stream. I will come back starting probably today, tomorrow. Twitch.tv/xmogomx. So I'm
You keep
around.
doing your Saturday thing?
We'll probably go back into Saturday. We took a break because there just wasn't anything to do,
Yeah.
and it didn't have a lot of
Staying
enjoyment.
powers.
There just wasn't, there
Yeah.
wasn't the excitement, there wasn't, and we knew the patch was getting close and people wanted to take a break. And I was like, well, we have people who run Tuesday, Wednesday raid with us or other people. And then Thursday or Monday with Snaly. And it was like, they, like they just
That's
wanted
a lot.
they just
Take a
wanted a
break.
break for a few weeks. And I said, okay, we'll just stop. We'll stop
Yeah.
until the patch. We'll patch, let everybody gear up, and then we'll start something back up again. So we'll get back into it once everyone's ready, but we thought it would be nice to give people 3 to 4 weeks of just rest, rejuvenate, because the work's coming again.
Mhm. Yes, the fun is going to be coming.
It's my favorite time. My favorite
Mhm.
time is when it comes out and you get to hit it hard
Yeah.
and go and get it all. And, you benefit from the more work you put in, the more you get out of it. So
That's right.
I enjoy putting in all the work and seeing what kind of results I get. Cause I know I'm not getting it in the raid, so I might as well get it somewhere else.
Well, thank you, Nergul, for coming in and
Yeah,
helping
Nergul,
us
thanks,
out.
buddy.
Thanks for having
Talking
me,
and
guys.
chatting and kind of keeping us up to date with some of this information that we might have missed. As you guys all know, my name is Pete, also Snalydo. I'm here on Twitch every single day, Monday to Friday, morning and nighttime. Today's going to be an interesting day. I have no idea what I'm going to do, but we'll have to figure that one out. But as I just want to keep you guys all up to date. Friday, we have our little get-together conversation about raid kind of catch-up. I'm going to be taking care of all that and recording it all from our guild conversations, and then we're going to hopefully be able to make it into some YouTube videos and throw them up there. That'll be a fun thing to do this weekend. As for the... what's it called? As for the... I'm going to be doing a UI redo for Mythic Plus for raids, and some Mythic Plus is going to be changing some stuff up. So hopefully we'll be able to do that on Monday of next week, right before raid day. And we're going to be ending up doing that. So thank you all very much for hanging out, and I appreciate it. This will be going up on YouTube tomorrow. As I told you guys, if you guys have any questions or anything going on, you can hit me up on Twitter, Discord, all that fun stuff. Snalydo, if you're looking for it, greatly appreciate it. Thank you all for hanging out, and we will see you all next week during our downtime. All right, and good luck on your vaults. And last week to get KSM if you're looking for it. So
yeah,
luck,
get out there and get it done,
Yep.
guys.
you get it done. I know it's a biatch of a week, but it's gonna be good for you.
It's not that bad. Get it
I'll
done.
see you guys later. And
See ya.
no, Charlie, I'm not getting rid of grid. Leave me alone. Bye.
Bye.